Hey y'all, welcome to Criminally Creative, a channel about my various creative endeavors. Today is Tuesday, can't remember what day of the week it is, Tuesday, October 1st, 2024, and this is episode 68. I am Susan. You can find me on Ravelry as Legal Eagle and on Instagram as Criminally Creative, the number 1. If you are new here, I appreciate you checking me out and hope you like what you see. If you are returning, I appreciate you coming back. There are a good number of new folks, which leads me into a thank you. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes because I don't want to forget anything. Um, I want to thank Pam and Steph from Just Keep Stitching, who made me their Gold Flosstuber of the Week back about 3 weeks ago. I have not recorded since like September 6th, and it was like that next Sunday episode of theirs that they made me their Gold Flosstuber. And I really appreciate the shout out. It came on the heels of a shout out from Jessie Marie at Jessie Marie Does Stuff. And it pushed me over the 1,000 subscriber limit, which I really appreciate. I do plan on the next episode to do some giveaways and stuff to celebrate that. However, I just got back from a long trip and I'm leaving again in 2 days. So I just haven't had time to coordinate that. So hopefully you will stick around for the next episode, and there will probably be some goodies up for grabs. So, but again, I do appreciate Just Keep Stitching for shouting me out. Also, Jessie Marie for shouting me out initially. And anybody else who has mentioned me, I forgot to go check that tab. I just a few weeks ago discovered the mentions tab and I forgot to check it before I started recording. So actually I'm going to check it right now. It looks like I do have a couple of additional mentions in the last couple weeks. I have not been watching Flosstube because I've been traveling, but I'm going to wait and watch those episodes before I mention them as well. But anyway, thank you all again. I'm rambling. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. I have never done this for subscribers. I mean, for the sake of getting subscribers. I just do it to share what I'm working on because I enjoy sharing that with everyone. But at the same time, it's nice to know there's somebody out there watching occasionally. So, particularly since I am a solo Flosstuber and just talk to myself and the camera. Anyway, so moving on to Hearsay. What have I been up to since the last episode? First up, I think I had mentioned last time we went to see Hootie and the Blowfish with Collective Soul and Edwin McCain. As I've previously mentioned, I was a bit of a Hootie and the Blowfish groupie back in the early 90s when I was in law school. My boyfriend at the time lived in Columbia, South Carolina, where they were at the time based out of, and was friends with them. So we pretty much followed them all over North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. This was when they were still playing in bars and nightclubs. They weren't doing big arenas yet. This is pre-record contract. We pretty much spent pretty much every weekend going wherever they were playing if it was in driving distance. So I had not seen them, however, since 1995 or 6. I can't remember. The last time I had seen them was at Walnut Creek in Raleigh, which is the same venue we went to this time. And I can't remember if it was 1995 or 96. And it poured down rain the entire time, and we were on the lawn. And, I mean, we stayed the entire show, and by the time we got home, we were just completely soaked. It was kind of funny this time. The show was great. It was a little bit funny this time because Edwin McCain was the opener, and he had also played with Hootie and the Blowfish in the 95 or 96 show, and he referenced that show. It did rain on us a little bit at this year's show, but not one. My husband and I were prepared because it had been raining some, so we took raincoats. And 2, it didn't rain as much as it did in 95 or 96, whichever that was. Plus, we were in seats this time. We did not have a roof over our head, but we were actually in seats, so we were not sitting on like the muddy grass and stuff. And Edwin McCain mentioned something I had totally forgotten, that on the lawn that year, back in 95 or 96, it was so muddy that it's a hill, on the lawn, so you can kind of see. And a portion of it had gotten so muddy, they turned it into basically like a slip and slide. And people were just sliding down the mud, like drunk and everything. So anyway, the concert was great. Loved Edwin McCain, loved Hootie and the Blowfish. I'm not as familiar with Collective Soul's music. I mean, I obviously know like Shine and some of their real popular stuff, but I enjoyed their show. I just didn't know their songs nearly as well as the Edwin McCain and Hootie and the Blowfish songs, which I pretty much knew every word of. So anyway, it was a little bit of my youth relived, and we had a great time, and despite the rain. That was about it until shortly before, like 2 days before our trip. I came home from work to find out that the heat pump that does the majority of our house was fried. Well, it wasn't working, and we knew earlier in the spring that we had a slow Freon leak. We had, topped up with Freon, so we thought that's what it was. Got the AC people in the next day or the day after that, right before we left for our trip, because we were thinking, just need to top up the Freon. No, the series of storms we had in the week or so before, at some point fried. Either lightning struck the heat pump, or a power surge happened, and the whole control board and everything is fried. So that is expediting replacing that heat pump. We do have 2 heat pumps in our house. Fortunately, the one that is working is the one that does the part of the house where our bedroom is, so we are comfortable sleeping. It has cooled down a little bit, so right now we've just got windows open downstairs and fans going when we're home. But anyway, so we found that out, I think, Thursday the 19th, left on our trip Friday the 20th, just got back this past Sunday the 29th, and so yesterday I spent all day doing laundry, paying bills, calling the air conditioner place to order a new heat pump, talking to homeowners insurance to decide whether or not we're going to claim it or not, because it's too risky with our rates. Anyway, I will talk more about the trip at the end of this episode. I'm going to move that all to the end so that anybody who's not interested in hearing about the details of that and seeing pictures and stuff does not have to watch it. I will also try to remember to do timestamps so you can skip around if you want to. And then the other hearsay thing does not affect me directly, but of course, while we were out west this past weekend, Hurricane Helene came through, and in addition to causing a lot of damage in Florida as a hurricane, it caused immense flooding in western North Carolina as a result of just the volume of rain. I'm not sure if it was a tropical storm still at that point. It doesn't matter what it was. Western North Carolina is absolutely devastated. I mean, their whole town's gone. It's just, seeing the pictures is just heartbreaking, particularly because I love the mountains of North Carolina, and we hope to retire to the mountains of North Carolina. The town that right now is the biggest contender for us to retire was not as bad hit as some of the other towns. They did have some damage and stuff, but Asheville, North Carolina, which is a major city in North Carolina, just was, I mean, you can't get there really much right now. I think now you can, but through the weekend, I mean, they were like saying, you cannot go on I-40 past Statesville. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. So there are numerous funds out there. Red Cross, North Carolina, there's a North Carolina fund. If you're interested in helping those people out, do some searching. I encourage you to do whatever you can to help, whether it be a monetary donation, thoughts, prayers, all that stuff, physical donations. Hopefully, if you are in that area or have any loved ones in that area, I hope that everyone is okay. Some of the stories we're hearing are just horrible. There's a woman from my area that's still missing because they had a house up there and they went to go get stuff out, and the flooding happened so much earlier and so faster than they expected. Their whole house was wiped away while they were in it. They have found her husband. They have not found her yet. So her husband was alive when he was found, but there are still people up there that can't. They have no cell phone service. They have no power. They have no water. It's anyway. I'm sure if you at all paid attention to the news, you have seen the devastation. And it's not just Western North Carolina. That's just what I'm seeing most because, of course, I'm in North Carolina. Georgia had some damage. South Carolina, of course, Florida, because it was an actual hurricane when it hit there. Anyway, on to hopefully more pleasant topics. But anyway, just, keep everybody in your thoughts and send good vibes to North Carolina. Let's move on to court is in session. There are I do have no verdicts this episode. I have not finished anything. So court is in session. We'll start with the knitting. And I only have 2 projects that I've worked on recently. I did a decent amount of knitting on our trip because knitting is easier to do as you're traveling and moving. But so I did work on my socks some. These are in a Flying Sock Monkey bag from Silver Shed USA. He was on Etsy. This is lollipop yarn in her traditional base in the colorway Smile. And as always, I'm doing them 2 at a time on 2 circulars, US 0, 2mm. And I finished the foot and have turned the heels and started the legs. I did a Fish Lips Kiss heel on these because that's the one I know off the top of my head. My last pair I tried a new heel, which I would like to do again, but I don't know that one as well as this one I could do without looking at any instructions. So I just did the Fish Lips Kiss heel in the contrasting navy, kind of a navy, and this. And now I'm working on the leg, and I may or may not do the cuff in that. I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet. So those will hopefully get done in the next month or so. Put that back on. And then I also, in this bag by Fat Squirrel, I think. Yes, this is Fat Squirrel bag. This used to be in a different bag, but I moved it to this one for traveling because it was a little lighter weight. This is the Litmus Cow by Jude Harper. I'm doing this on US 4 needles, 3.5mm, in a mini skein set from Robin's Promise yarn, and the mini skein set is called Luck of the Irish. This is a cow I'm doing for my youngest niece. And this stitch marker right here is where I was the last time you saw it. So I have done this much since then. My goal originally was to finish this by the end of September. Obviously, that has not happened. I'm doing 5 repeats of the color of the 10. There's 10 colors. I'm doing 5 repeats of the colors. And I've just started the 4th repeat. So, I need to step up. This goes real quick when I work on it consistently. I did most of this in 1 week on our trip, and that's not even working on it every day. So I just need to work on it consistently, and hopefully I'm going to have that done by about mid-month so that I can still try to get, I've got 1 more to do for my middle niece in the red, white, and blacks and grays that I did the previous one. And I would like to have all those done hopefully by end of November, if not early December. So we'll see. Excuse me. So that's the knitting. We'll move on to the stitching. We'll start with September stats. I've got to put my glasses on for this so I can read. September was not as productive stitching for me as previous months, largely in part because I was gone for 9 days on a trip. There were also a couple of days leading up to the trip where I did not stitch at all, because of prepping and stuff like that. So in September, I stitched a total of 9,336 stitches, which is almost half of my normal. I stitched a total of 17 days and 39 hours, which is definitely a little less than half of my normal. I I stitched on a total of 9 projects, and I began the month with 93 whips. I started 1 new project. I finished 0 projects, and so I ended the month with 94 whips. So let me show you what I've worked on since last time. First up is in this bag by Vicky Stitch and Button. If you are new here, as I talk, I will put pictures up of what the project will look like when it's finished. And then if I have one, I will put a picture of what it looked like the last time you saw it. This is a Stitch a Day by Morning Glory Needleworks. This is a project that I'm supposed to be working on every Sunday. Excuse me, the past 2 months, that has not been the case. The last time I showed this to you, I was like 2 or 3 weeks behind. I did catch up that weekend after I last recorded, but I'm now another 3 or so weeks behind. So, I'm hoping to catch up with this in the next week or so. But anyway, this is where it is now. I need to remember to hold this kind of a certain place, hold my project so that I can put my where it was last time pictures, and you can kind of get either a side-by-side or up and down or something. So again, this is a project I work on Sundays. This project is a specialty stitch project where each little square around is a specialty stitch and each inside is a specialty stitch. And so you do like an outside square one day and the inside the next day. I do either 3 or 4 complete squares every Sunday when I am working on it regularly. And so, like I said, right now that's through like September 8th or something. I still have to do most of September on this. So, oh, and I should have mentioned, that is on 28 count Mystic fiber Lugana in the colorway Time Worn. And since you last saw it, I did 353 stitches. I do not have a percentage on that because that is a paper chart that I'm working off of. Next up is in this just little blue Q bag. This is my Mill Hill kit that I'm currently working on. It's called Witch's Cauldron. I should mention, I started a Stitch a Day on January 7th of this year. And the goal is to hopefully have it finished by shortly into 2025. So, this project I started on July 8th of this year. And this is where I currently am. I have done 158 stitches since you last saw it. I did a total of 251 stitches in September. So that is getting close to having all the cross stitches done. I think I've got 1, maybe 2 more colors I've got to do the like thread X's on, and then I will start beading. I try to do Mill Hill Monday, where I put at least 100 stitches in whatever my Mill Hill is every Monday. Again, that has not been super consistent the past month or so, so I'm going to try. Didn't do it yesterday, but I'm going to try to get back into that starting next Monday. Okay, flip the page here. Next up was my first September whip go. Now, normally my whip go goals are 10 hours on each project. This month, in September, because I knew a chunk of time was not going to be stitching because of the trip, I reduced those goals to 5 hours on each project. So first up on Whip Go is in this bag from Creative Carol with I think this is a Tula Pink print with the peacocks, and inside it has the kind of psychedelic hexagons. This is Minnie the Wool Shop, which is a art based on artwork by Lucy Pittaway, charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. I'm just doing it on 25 count easy grid 1/1 full cross. I started this on March 2nd of 2023, and I did 5 hours on this and got 1,380 stitches. I did a little more of this, and I got tired of doing all the shades of blue, so I moved over here and got started doing some of those words and outlining the top of the building. I am currently at 3.2% on this. So I had, if you're new, I had originally started the wool shop, the full version, and decided that it was going to take so long to finish. It was so huge, it's going to take so long to finish it. And this is one I really would like to get finished in the next 8 to 10 years, you know. So I ditched that and started over with the mini. So that's how big, you know, approximately it will be when I'm done, which is much more doable than the full-size version. Sorry, I can't seem to get the fabric doesn't want to go back in there right. Sorry. The other Whip Go project for September is in this bag from, oh, I've forgotten her name. She's actually from my hometown, or lives in my hometown. I'll put her name across the bottom of the screen because it's just not coming to me. I know it. This is Pandemic by Long Dog Samplers. I started this on January 1st of 2022. I'm doing it on 40 count antique white Zweigart. I'm doing it with Silks for You primarily in PR 147, which is a variegated kind of like two-tone blue. I'm on my iPhone and it doesn't show up blues and blue greens well, but there's definitely a lighter blue on this side. And then all of the like animals I'm doing in what is a little bit more of a turquoisey blue, and it's not, the difference is not really showing up on the screen, I know, and it won't show up on this very well, but anyway, so this is where I am currently. I did a total of 1,371 stitches. I'm currently at 14.9% on this. Mainly what I did is I came across the top further, and then I started, do this so I can see a little better. And then I started working down in there. So, decent amount of progress for just 5 hours on that. Next up, at the beginning of the year, there was a Halloween group that I had joined. The group has since closed, but one of the goals that I had set for the year in that group, I kept for the year, even though the group wasn't there to do it anymore. And that was to pick a project for each quarter, a Halloween themed project for each quarter. And my goal was to do at least 400 stitches on it each month, with a real goal of 1,000 stitches each month. The one for this past quarter was Halloween Quaker by Leela Studio. This is in another bag by Creative Carol. That has owl and stuff inside. And this is, like, as I said, this is Halloween Quaker by Leela Studio. The first 2 months I did get at least 1,000 stitches on it. This in September, because of my time constraints, I only did 506 stitches. I started this June 30th of 2021. I'm doing it on 40 count Fiber on a Whim fabric in the colorway Heather. And this is where it currently is. I basically this time worked more on that bottom house scene and filled some more of that in. I am currently at 47.9% on this, so almost 50%. It actually, again, stitches up pretty quick when I work on it. But that will get put away for a while because now we're into the fourth quarter, so there will be a new project, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Next up is in this bag that I bought from Stitchery Express. I don't know who makes them, but they sell them through their Facebook group. This is The Mandalorian by Forbidden Fiber Co. I'm doing this on 36 count Forbidden Fiber fabric in the colorway Tumbleweed. I started this July 16th of 2022, and I've done another 323 stitches since you last saw it. They were all up here, I think pretty much all up here in the face, filling that in. I'm currently at 27.2% on this. I have made one adjustment to this pattern. Grogu in the original pattern is a little bit more this way, and I moved him a few stitches out this way so that he's a little bit more evenly centered around the word "the" with the Mandalorian. So that's where we stand on that. This is the current project that I'm kind of keeping out to work on as I have time after I finish my goals for the month, with an eye towards hopefully finishing this by the end of the year. And I'm going to have to get up for a minute and let my cat out because she's going to bang on the door. Okay, last up is the New Start. This is in a Dragonfly bag by Barefoot Needle Arts, and it has this silver on the inside. This was my New Start that I'm doing as a stitch along with Beth from the Steadfast Stitcher. I started this as my trip piece. So I started this Friday the 20th. Excuse me. I started this Friday the 20th. I had planned to start it on our initial flight. We had like a flight to Minneapolis and then a flight to Kalispell, Montana, near Glacier. But our first flight was at 6 a.m. and I didn't really sleep the night before, so I was way too tired. But we had like a 4-hour layover in Minneapolis, so I started it in the airport in Minneapolis. And I was able to work on it a couple more times on the trip. This is Nature's Peace by Carriage House Samplings. So like I said, I started this on September 20th of this year. I'm doing it on 22 count Bestitch Me Ada in the colorway Scroll. I decided to do it on Ada since it was a travel project. It was a little bit easier to stitch, you know, on the go. And actually, like I said, I did work on this 3 times total, and I got a total of 1,267 stitches, and I'm currently at 24.5%. This will get at least a little bit more work this next weekend because I will see Beth at the Barefoot Needle Arts retreat, and so I plan to work on it a little bit with her at least this weekend. So, and I have it in the Nerd Chute because that was easier for traveling, but I will move it to a Q-snap after that. So that is it for the stitching. That actually took a little longer than I thought it would. Next up is on the docket. As I said, it's October 1st. That means new goals for the month. Some of them are ongoing regular goals. You may have noticed that I did not show you Anzac, which is my leap day stitch that I'm supposed to do 600 stitches on each month. Did not get to that before my trip, and my plan was that I would stitch on that either Sunday when we got back or yesterday. I have done no stitching since we got back because there's just been too much else to do and I was too tired. So I'm a little ahead on Anzac anyway, but my October goal for Anzac is going to be 1,200 stitches instead of 600 since I did not do anything on it in September. My Whip Go calls for October are Coming to America With Thy Needle and Thread, Brenda Gervais, and Treasure Hunt Bookshelf, which is a Heaven and Earth Designs charted pattern of artwork by Amy. I've drawn a blank on her name, but I'll put her name across here, the artist's name that the artwork's based on across here. Then I also have my Stitches for One Nation. That's the piece that I divided into 12 to finish in 2024. I have recently put the last bit that I have to do into Markup RXP so I could get a stitch count, and now I'm going to try to finish it by the end of November, which means I need to do at least 1,400 stitches this month, which is about half of the stitches I have left. Kingdom of Books needs to get 2,000 stitches, as it does each month. My quarterly project for the Halloween is Away We Ride by Blackbird Designs, so that will hopefully get at least 1,000 at least 400, hopefully 1,000 stitches this month. I need to catch up on a stitch a day, and I do have 2 new starts planned for this month. My birthday is Sunday, October 6th, and for that I'm going to be starting Southern Land by Al Forst Embroidery. Stitch and Brat recently finished it, and it reminded me how much I loved it. And I have the Al Forst threads that I ordered a couple of years ago, and I have the pattern digitally, so I will be doing that starting Sunday the 6th. My excuse me, my friend Julia is also going to be starting it. She unfortunately is not going to be able to come to the Barefoot Retreat. Fortunately for her, because she's going to be at Hobby House. But I don't know if she's going to be able to start it on the 6th, but she's also going to start that with me sometime in the month of October. And I think my friend Peggy is also going to be starting it with me this weekend for my birthday. And then also this weekend, Peggy and I are planning to start the Erica Michaels Quilting ABCs pattern. So I will start that either Friday or Saturday. I don't know which one yet. And then the other thing I need to get done is I have my friend Ann's version of Tiny Town. We've been doing the Tiny Town round robin. So I have the last one that I'm receiving, and Ann will actually be at the retreat this weekend. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish that tomorrow before I leave for the retreat on Thursday. But if not, I will finish it while I'm at the retreat so I can give her the finished Tiny Town while I'm there. So those are my goals and definite plans. I also plan, to try to work on Mandalorian if there's extra time, and I may try to. I haven't even really had a chance to look at the games in my Facebook groups for the month. So I don't know if anything I'm doing with that. I haven't looked at the acrostic and crafting books. I haven't looked at the I Spy for Laura Stitching by the Shore. I'm need to look at those because I want to use the ones that I have goals for those as much as possible. And then if I have time, I'll finish up the rest of them. So I had grand plans at the beginning of September. I had all these plans for all that stuff and made those plans not even thinking about the fact that I wasn't going to be stitching for probably 10 or 11 days. But anyway, so I marked off what I finished, but I didn't finish all that. So that's it for on the docket calendar. Barefoot Needle Arts Retreat is this coming weekend. I will drive down Thursday. The retreat is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I come back Sunday. As I mentioned, Sunday is my birthday. I was supposed to go October 16th through 20th, whatever that Sunday is, to the Asheville area for Southeastern Animal Fiber Fair. Obviously, because Western North Carolina has been decimated, that has been canceled. I don't know that they have officially canceled SAF yet, but I can't imagine that they're not going to. I have a feeling that it hasn't been announced because nobody up there has communication. But even if for some reason it goes on, Western North Carolina does not need visitors right now. So I have already canceled our reservation for where we were going. We were talking about... me and Peggy and Michelle, the friends I travel with, we were talking about maybe doing something else that weekend, but then I got back to work today and found out that my new employee is actually going to be starting October 16th. So I really need to be in the office at least October 16th and 17th. We may still try to do something short that like Friday through Sunday, but we haven't decided yet. It may just get the weekend may get totally canceled. We don't know yet. But I am first full weekend of November, the weekend right before Veterans Day. going to be at the beach with Peggy. Michelle can't come, unfortunately, and some other crafty friends, and we'll have that crafty weekend. So, shout outs. Just a couple, because I really have not watched Flosstube as much as usual because I've been gone mostly. But Janet Jabber, if you're not watching Janet, you need to watch her. Janet was one of my table mates at Queen City Stitch Retreat last year. She is a lot of fun. She is always so happy and brings so much joy to everyone. And her videos are usually relatively short, like 20 minutes, 30 at the max. So if you don't have a lot of time, they're easier to fit in. So, and she records every week. So, a new one to me, Britches Get Stitches, Tasha. Before my trip, I was able to watch her most recent episode at that time, and also went back and started with her first episode, but I haven't had a chance to do much more than that. So I'm going to try to catch up with hers, with some more of hers. But she does both sewing and cross stitching, but she has now separated her videos so that I think she's doing all of her cross stitching in what she's calling floss tubes. And I think she's doing her sewing separate. Excuse me. And finally, just for this week, Stitcher's Hollow, which is Alex and Neil. They've rebranded their channel, and now I'm drawing a blank on what they were previously called. I can't remember what the previous name was. I'll put it across the screen just so in case you recognize it, you'll know that their name has changed. Neil lives out, I think, in Colorado, Denver area. Alex, however, lives in Waynesville, North Carolina, which is one of the areas that has been wiped out practically. Waynesville is one of the towns that was not one of the towns destroyed. It's there, but they have had a ton of flooding. Alex has posted recently that she's fine. And I believe actually that the church that I think she works for is doing like a shelter and providing services and stuff that she posted about today. But anyway, Neil and Alex are cousins, and so they record most of the time, remotely. Anyway, Neil's a video producer, so it all works seamlessly. And they're a lot of fun to watch as well. So, I need to make a list of everybody I have shouted out officially and everybody I still want to shout out officially, because every time I do an episode I go, who haven't I talked about yet? So next up is stashing for retirement. I don't have a ton this time. I have a few things, but because I've been traveling and I actually didn't buy anything. I did find out in one place I saw a yarn shop. I didn't stop because Lord knows I don't need any more yarn. I found out later that they also carry some cross-stitch stuff from another store in that town. But they closed at 5 and it was like 4:15 and we would have had to go back to the car and get out. And so I didn't go. I didn't need to buy anything anyway. So a couple things. I got my Atomic Ranch Fabric of the Month that I get through Stitch New England. It was pistachio. I get 40 count linen. So that's a pretty green. That's probably like either Halloween or Easter to me. I don't stitch a lot of Easter, so it's more likely to be Halloween when it comes to it. I could see like something witchy with like purple thread or something on that. My Bestitch Me Fabric of the Month, again, 40 count linen. And I get the neutrals, and this time it was Frost, which is a very bluey gray. Like that a lot. And then my monthly Oak Crown Studios, Amy, Fiber Arts Amy. Sorry, I couldn't think of her username. This, I get a 32 count Lugana, and this is Healing Potion, which is a purpley blue. And this is intended to kind of go or coordinate with last month's, which was Mana Potion. It's got less green in it, but her vision, I love it. She always sends you like a card that kind of tells you what her inspiration was. And her vision was that, you could do like two mirrors or similarly related on the two different fabrics and they would go well together, even though the fabrics are not the same. I got my Fabulous House series number 10, which I get auto ship from Stitch New England. The Fairy House. And they have just released a picture of number 11, which is, I don't know what I can't remember what they're calling it, but it's like a Halloween-y house, which I love. I ordered, this was on back order from 123 Stitch, and I got it in, which is another one of the Jim Shore gnomes, gnome with bells. Got that. And then I got my, I placed another order with Stitch New England to get some things that I hadn't, for the series. And anyway, here's what I got. I don't need to give you the rationale for what I got. I got number 6 of the, what's the series called? Log Cabin Christmas series. And number 7. So there are 2 more parts. 8 is out. And so I'll probably wait till 9 comes out. And then I'll order 8 and 9 from her. This is one, I think this was a recent release that either I didn't order when it first came out or I just saw it and wanted it. It's With Thy Needle and Thread, Brenda Gervais. Feels Like Fall. I love fall most of all. And also Woodland Witch by With Thy Needle and Thread. I probably, if I do this, will just do, I will probably just do the witch in the glass thing. I probably will not do all the stuff around it. And I will do it, I don't know if I'll do it as a stand-up or something. This is actually an older 2023 from Primrose Cottage Stitches that I just have always wanted, and I went ahead and ordered it to, of course, get to $50, so I had free shipping. This is called Leaves of Autumn. I really like that. It says, every leaf speaks bliss to me, fluttering from the autumn tree. I'm hoping you cannot hear my cat banging on the door, wanting to come back in. And then a couple things digitally online. I got my Just Cross Stitch Christmas Ornament Edition. I'm not going to do a flip. I'll put a picture of what the front looks like here, but I'm sure there'll be other Flosstubers that will do flip throws if they have not already. I have not been on Flosstube, so I don't know. I also ordered 2 other patterns before my trip. Jan Hicks had I think it was her birthday sale. It was a sale for some reason. And so I ordered her pattern Arabesque, which I will put a picture of here. And then also on Friday the 13th, Witchy Stitcher had a sale. And so I ordered her pattern Leave Me Alone. I think the name of the pattern is Leave Me Alone, but it's Leave Me Alone, I'm cross stitching. So I'll put a picture of that up here. So that is it for all the crafty Flosstubey stuff. I was going to talk a little bit about my trip. So if you're not interested in that, I appreciate you watching up to this point, and come back next time where I will definitely have some giveaways in celebration of my 1,000 subscriber benchmark. But if you're interested in our trip, I'm going to talk a little bit about that now. And then at the end, I'm going to put kind of a little slideshow and try to wheedle down the hundreds of pictures that my husband took into something much more manageable to give you a sense. I took some pictures, but my husband's one of those people that takes 80 pictures and uploads them all to Facebook with no, weeding out of the good and the bad. So I've got all his pictures and all my pictures, and I'm going to try to weed that down to, no more than maybe 20 in a slideshow for y'all, if you're interested in seeing it. So, but again, like I said, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about our trip. We flew out Friday the 20th, and flew into Kalispell, Montana, which is the closest airport to Glacier National Park up in Montana. When we started planning this trip, we were originally just looking at Yellowstone and Grand Teton. But then I started looking at, where they were and distances, and I realized that Glacier was really only like a 3.5 hour drive away. And I thought, we're probably not going to get out to this area of the country again anytime soon. And I don't know that we would make a trip solely to go to Glacier. So it did make sense to me to go that close and not go to Glacier. So we flew into Kalispell. We stayed Friday night and Saturday night in Columbia Falls, a little place called Smoky Bear Ranch that was kind of a B&B. They also had some cabins to rent. Saturday the 21st, we did a like all day 8 hour kind of like bus tour of, so Glacier has what's called the going to the sun road, which I think is like 50 miles long, something like that, and it winds all through Glacier National Park where you can see all the sights and stuff. We did like an 8 hour tour on a bus with Glacier Institute, which I highly recommend if you're going to Glacier. I didn't want to have to drive and try to be looking while we're driving, or my husband drive and him try to be looking while he's driving. Also, in hindsight, it was an excellent decision because there were a lot of people in Glacier National Park that Saturday, and parking for the places where you want to park and see was jam-packed and difficult. So not having to deal with that frustration and having somebody else that was driving, we were on like, one of those little mini buses that holds like 12 people or something. That was, and it was great. And the thing I love about Glacier Institute, and here's why I really recommend them, is one, they are the Glacier National Park's educational partner. So they're, connected to Glacier that way. Also, all of their guides, they don't just hire whoever they can find to do these tours. All of their guides have some kind of degree in something relevant to working the park. Our guide, he was a young guy. I mean, he was like 25 years old, but he had like an undergraduate degree in biology with a concentration in geology and a psychology or something like that, and was obviously very passionate about the park and the geological makeup of it, and the guides that do the tours don't just do tours for Glacier Institute. Glacier Institute uses the tours they do to provide money for their other programs, which are educational programs in the community. They do summer programs for kids that they don't turn anybody away because they can't afford to pay for it, that are all based in the park and learning about the park and the geology and the biology and all that. So so their employees that do tours also do the educational programs and stuff, which is why they require them to have some kind of background degree, something in it. They also do more strenuous tours than the one we took. They do hikes, they do backpacking trips in if that's what you want to do. I'm just physically not up to that, so we did a ride the bus tour. Excuse me. I mean, we did a little bit of hiking, but it was like relatively flat hiking or short little things, So Glacier was beautiful. We did that Saturday. Sunday morning, we got up and we piddled around that area a little bit. We went to Glacier Distilling, and I didn't get his name, but the guy, one of the owners there, talked with him for a little while. And then we started driving down to Helena, Montana, which is the state capital of Montana. We ended up taking the long route. When we were in Glacier Distillery, the guy there told us about a little tiny town on our way to Helena that he said it was worth a stop. And so I had plugged that in as a stop. And apparently when I did that, it altered our route and I didn't realize it. So we ended up we could have gone the way that I originally planned and made the stop, but somehow when it sent us a longer way around. It sent us closer to a lake that originally we were kind of bypassing. But anyway, so it took us a little longer to get there than we planned, but we stopped. The little town he told us about was Ovando, Montana, and it is like population 44 according to the sign, but it's set up like it really is just a tiny little area. You go down a dirt road to get to it, or like a dirt driveway, but it's got like an old-fashioned general store and a little restaurant, a fishing store, and post office, but it's all kind of old west looking. It was just kind of neat. We stopped there and had lunch and went in the general store and looked a little bit. And then we drove to Helena. And then, so Monday morning, if you are new here, I work for the North Carolina State Legislature. I can't drive by a state capitol building without visiting it. And we were going to have to go through Helena to get to Yellowstone. So, I've got to tour the state capitol. So Monday morning we got up, and they do a state capitol tour every morning, every weekday morning at 11. But I had called ahead because we didn't want to wait till 11, and they were doing a tour for another group at 9:30 that they let me and my husband tack on to. So, which actually turned out to be really good, because the group that they were doing the tour for, they were getting ready to start some kind of historical week or something. And so the group that they were doing the tour for was a group that had like a scholar who was on a scholarship from the Philippines to study Montana government and stuff. So they were well educated about Montana government and history, which just made for some interesting questions and helped us learn a whole lot more about Montana legislature and government and history and stuff like that. And we had an excellent guide. And he was, at the end, he was like, y'all are probably the most knowledgeable group that I've ever had. I didn't know a lot about Montana history, but of course, working for the North Carolina State Legislature, knew more about kind of legislative process and stuff. So anyway, left Helena and went through Bozeman, Montana, stopped there and had lunch at a little brewery there, and then got to Gardner, Montana, which is at the north entrance to Yellowstone, where we stayed Monday night. And that's just a cute little town. At dusk, and again the next morning, the elk are like wandering into town. that was kind of cool. That was our first real glimpse of animals that real close. In Glacier, we unfortunately had not really seen a lot of animals. My husband and I didn't see it, but a bighorn sheep kind of ran across the road in front of the bus. But it was so fast, we didn't actually see it because we weren't looking in the right direction at the time. So we saw elk in Gardner, and then Tuesday morning, got up and drove into Yellowstone. And Tuesday we did pretty much most of the upper, if you've ever been to Yellowstone or you look at a map of Yellowstone, there's a main road that's kind of like a figure 8. And so we did most of the upper loop of Yellowstone. Various stops, went out the Lamar Valley route and back. So we saw a lot of bison. We saw more elk at Mammoth area Tuesday morning. Excuse me. What else did we see? We saw a coyote. I feel like we saw something else, and now I can't think what it was. So we did, and we saw like the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone. There is a Grand Canyon of Yellowstone. It's not the Grand Canyon that you hear about, but there's a Grand Canyon of Yellowstone. So we saw the Lower Falls, we saw the Tower Falls. I'm trying to think of what other like landmarks we saw. We saw the hot springs at Mammoth, and just lots of beautiful scenery. And then we made our way down to Old Faithful and the Old Faithful Inn, which is where we stayed Tuesday night, in the historic Old Faithful Inn. That was neat because it's like, old lodge, really high ceilings. Our room, right outside our window, you could see Old Faithful, except there was a tree in the way. So you couldn't really see Old Faithful because there was like a medium-sized tree in the way, but we were like right next to Old Faithful. So we saw Old Faithful go off, and I've got a little video of that I'll probably include. Wednesday morning, we got up and had breakfast at the inn, and then left and did most of the lower loop of Yellowstone. Stopped at, a couple of sites along the way, and then made our way out the east entrance and drove to Cody, Wyoming. We left Old Faithful Inn, so backing up, when we were in Glacier, when we woke up Saturday morning, it was like 30 degrees, and we were in like I had my sweatshirt. Thank goodness I decided to pack my winter coat, because I had my winter coat, I had my hat, my gloves. It was cold. And it warmed up later in the day to where like I didn't need my coat, but I still needed my sweatshirt and my hat. When we in Yellowstone, it was cooler Tuesday. Like I kept my sweatshirt on all day and I didn't really get hot. Wednesday morning we woke up, it was like 40 degrees at the Old Faithful when we left. By the time we got to Cody, Wyoming, so Cody, Wyoming is about an hour east of the east entrance to Yellowstone. It took us 2 hours to get from Old Faithful to the east entrance, so about 3 hours away. When we got to Cody around lunch, a little like early afternoon on Wednesday, it was 91 degrees in Cody, which apparently was very unusual for them, but it was downright hot. So we, boy, this is taking a long time. So, one thing I had realized a day or so before that, I had seen a coworker of mine post on Facebook about being in Yellowstone, and I didn't realize she works in a different division from me, but I didn't realize she was out there. And so we ended up kind of vacationing together that week, because she and her husband were like a day or two ahead of us, and they didn't go to Glacier, they just started in Yellowstone. But something she had posted was something I didn't know about that we did that Wednesday afternoon when we got to Cody. Is outside of Cody is Heart Mountain Relocation Center, which was one of the Japanese internment camps during World War II. And so we went out to visit that Wednesday afternoon. That was very somber, but very interesting, because I really like history and World War II history. There are a couple of buildings left there from the actual camp. They have built some buildings that are designed to kind of look from the outside like they were in the camp. But the size of that camp when it was being used as a relocation center, which is what they technically called them, was immense. It was, yeah, it's very eye-opening to kind of see some of the pictures and stuff and read some of the history. And it's one of those things that you know, if you grew up in the U.S., you probably briefly heard about studying World War II history. But, you know, very somber, very sad in a lot of ways to think about, you know, that part of our history. But definitely worth a visit if you're ever near Cody, Wyoming. Thursday, we basically spent all day in the Buffalo Bill Center of the West, I think it's called. Buffalo Bill Center of the West. I had to write it down because I never get it right. That is basically 5 museums. There is a firearm museum. There is an the Whitney Art Gallery, which is all, you know, like Western art. There is a Museum of the Plains Indian. There is a Natural History Museum, and there's a Buffalo Bill Museum. If you're not from the U.S., Buffalo Bill did these Wild West shows back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s, that traveled all over not only North America, but went to Europe and were very popular. And Cody, Wyoming, his name was William Cody, and Cody, Wyoming, he basically created, or they named it after. Anyway, there's a hotel there that he built and all kinds of stuff. So we spent most of the day Thursday in there. My husband probably could spend a whole nother day in just the firearms museum, because they had, I mean, huge collection of firearms. And I'm not as interested in firearms himself as my husband is, but there was a lot of history in there that I enjoyed reading about. And then Friday morning, we got up and drove back through part of Yellowstone down into Grand Teton to Jackson, Wyoming. Spent the afternoon in Jackson, Wyoming, down around the town square, wandering, and, you know, had lunch and just looking around and piddling. And then we stayed at a place called the Virginian in Jackson, which was a real neat. It was an older, like motor-inn hotel where you drive up to your door for the most part, but they've remodeled a lot of it and stuff, and they've really set it up. Like, there's a big courtyard that has a pool, which we didn't get into, but they have a little fires, like gas fires, and from 7 to 9 every night out the front desk they hand out s'mores kits. You can make s'mores. They have a little bar, they have a restaurant, there's a little spa on site. You know, they have it designs where you can just kind of go and hang out there if you want to. So Friday night, you know, like, my husband went up to the bar while I relaxed for a bit, and then I went up and met him, and we made s'mores and, you know, hung out for a while. Saturday we were up before dawn. So we had been told by a couple people that in order to see moose, the best place to go was Moose Ponds in Grand Teton, but to get there before 9 o'clock. So we just got up really early, drove up there, hiked up to Moose Ponds. We did see one female moose. My husband saw her, I think, a little closer than I did. There was one part he went down that was pretty steep that I didn't go down because I wasn't sure I was going to get back up with my knees. But from where I stayed, I saw her. I just saw her from a little bit higher plane. And then after we did that, we drove over to Moose Ponds is not too far from Jenny Lake. Then we drove over to actual Jenny Lake. And we took a boat across Jenny Lake and hiked up to Hidden Falls. Did not even attempt Inspiration Point. As a matter of fact, I didn't quite make it all the way to Hidden Falls. There was a lot of like stair step steep, and my knees were just not having it anymore. So fortunately, I had bought, as we were leaving Yellowstone, I bought one trekking pole. We bought a second trekking pole on our way back through Yellowstone, because that was helping a lot with the uneven ground, and then coming down the steepness, that was giving me some support. So my knees were screaming at me, but I did it, except for I did not quite make it all the way to Hidden Falls. My knee was not happy at the moment. So we did that Saturday. Saturday, we came back into town, we had lunch, and then basically we went back to the hotel and just relaxed for the afternoon because we needed to finish getting packed. Our flight Sunday morning was at like 7 a.m., so we had to leave the hotel at like 4:30. So we went to bed a decent hour and got up Sunday and flew back. We got into Raleigh about 5:30 Sunday night. We had a long layover in Salt Lake City. And of course the time change. Went ahead and got some dinner before we drove home, so we ended up getting home about 8 o'clock. Our cat was very happy to see Rob too. She's my cat, really. We have some neighbor boys that come in and check on her when we're gone like that, but she doesn't like them very much. They're loud and they move fast, and, you know, she's a little skittish with that. So they did, after they come in a couple of times and not actually seen her, you know, I told them where to hunt for her, and they found her under the guest bed and sent me a picture of proof of life. But so she has been somewhat attached. As a matter of fact, I had to let her out a little bit ago in this video, and now she's banging to come back in, but I haven't gotten up yet. So anyway, that that was about it. I took Monday off and slept really late, and then did groceries and paid bills, and did laundry, paid bills, called the AC place to have them order a new heat pump to hopefully get replaced in the next couple weeks. And today I went back to work. I was at work today, and I will be at work tomorrow, and then I'm off again to Barefoot Needle Arts retreat. So anyway, it was a wonderful trip. We had a lot of fun. It's a lot to move. There were very busy days, a lot of walking, but we enjoyed it. And I'm going to add a slideshow after this of some of hopefully the best pictures, and probably a couple of short little videos if you're interested. If you're not, you can skip on out. And I appreciate you watching and checking me out, and hopefully I will be back in a couple of weeks, probably sometime the weekend of the 12th, 13th. And until then, I hope you're all doing well. If you are in Western North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, any places affected by Hurricane Helene, I hope that you are safe and doing well. If you're not in one of those areas and you can help any of those folks out, please do so if you can, even if it is only by sending them good vibes or prayers. So I will talk with y'all later. And that's all. Bye, y'all. There it goes. Wow.